Once again, the San Francisco Giants disappoint. The 2025 season comes to a very sad, disappointing, and kind of just underwhelming end. And there's a lot to break down about what went right and what went wrong for the San Francisco Giants. And back to tell you all about it is your boy here as I make my return to the podcasting world. I am your host, Darius Lott, and this is Second and King. Welcome to Second and King.
It's hit from high. It's a deep. It is out of here.
Your one-stop shop for everything San Francisco Giants.
Deep right field by Crawford. Adios, Pelota.
And now, here's your host, Darius Lott.
Yeah.
Hey, guess who's back? It's been way too long since I did this, sat down in front of this microphone and talked to you guys about Giants baseball. Things got a little hectic, life be life, and I won't go into it much more than that, but I kind of got the urge to talk Giants baseball again because there's a lot of things happening with the franchise, and yeah, I feel like now would be a good time to do a little autopsy on the 2025 San Francisco Giants. What went right, what went wrong. So yeah, just dive right into it. The Giants, like I said, underperformed and once again underwhelmed in 2025. It's kind of almost the same thing as 2024 and even 2023 and 2022. Like, you see what I'm saying? It's a pattern with this team, like being underwhelming and underperforming and not being able to meet expectations. So we're back here again talking about another just disappointing year. The Giants once again missed out on the playoffs. They finished 81-81, just at 500. They didn't really have much of. They've had a few, like, they rattled off wins and they rattled off runs throughout the course of the year. Like, they were very streaky, up and down team this year. And if you look at their overall, like, record month by month, like, they opened the year strong. Like, March and April, they went 19-12. And then May and June collectively, they went 13-14. Then July, oh God, July was terrible for the Giants. They went 9-15. They went 14-14 in August, and then finished the year 13-12 in the month of September. So yeah, that level of inconsistency and up and down play doesn't usually translate to good results, and you see it here at 80-81, 500 finish, no playoffs once again. So the Giants once again outside looking in as they just couldn't get it going really from a consistent standpoint. And it really, like I mentioned, like July and 9-15, that's really where things kind of turn for the team, which is weird because in that month, you know, I always go back to, I believe, what day was it? Things should have been like revving up, like getting ready to go. Like, you go back to June 15th, they were 41-31. They were 2 games out of the division lead, and they had just gotten Rafael Devers from the Boston Red Sox. Like, it felt like they were getting ready to roll, like they were getting ready to start, like, really going. So it felt like it was the beginning of a run for the Giants, but July 1st hit and then things kind of went on a tailspin. Like, they opened the month strong. They took 2 of 3 from division rival Arizona, followed that up with winning 2 games against the Athletics. They took 2 out of 3 there, and then they turned around and took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. So it's like, okay, and then they're gearing up for another meeting with the Dodgers, and then after taking that first game, that's when things kind of just snowballed on them. They lost that series, followed that up with a sweep at the hands of the Blue Jays. They seemingly bounced back, taking 2 of 3 from Atlanta. Then they followed that up with a 6-game losing streak. So they actually, in that span from July 12th to July 30th, went on 2 different 6-game losing streaks. And that losing streak at the end of the month included a sweep at the hands of the Pirates at home. Like, that's inexcusable. Like, the Pirates, and I don't know if any Pirates fans are listening, probably not, but forgive me, but the Pirates, for all intents and purposes, are a bottom feeding team, and that's a team you should beat. Those are games you should win. Like, I know it's baseball, and you never know at the end of the day what's gonna happen, but to lose those games at home, crucial games, and to have 2 different 6-game losing streaks in the same month, that'll kill any momentum you might have. And being super streaky and inconsistent like that, like I said at the top, it spells disaster for you. It's not gonna go well for you. And unfortunately, as we see, the Giants just couldn't handle it. And they weren't particularly good, in the division either. Like, you look at their record against in-division opponents, outside of their 11-2 record against the Rockies, which, congratulations, you beat up on the Colorado Rockies. I would have been pissed if you didn't beat up on the Rockies. You're supposed to beat up on the Rockies the same way you were supposed to beat up on the Pirates. So I'm not gonna give you props for that, but you go 6-7 against Arizona, you go 4-9 against the Dodgers, and then you go 3-10 against San Diego. They weren't even tops in their division. They finished 3rd, but it was clear that they just couldn't really measure up to those teams, which is a shame, because you look at the Giants roster, heading into the season and then partway through July, you thought they had a real chance to do something, but unfortunately they just weren't able to. So when you look at it, of course they're super streaky, but why were they super streaky? Well, there were points throughout the year where they would just consistently waste good pitching performances. The pitching for the Giants overall was the strength of the team, which I kind of alluded to early in my very first episode. I talked about the projections or potential for this Giants team, and when I looked at them and how they were built, I saw very good possibility that their pitching would be the leading force behind their success in 2025. And when the season started, it looked like that was going to come to form. Their pitching was excellent. They got great performances throughout the year from guys like Logan Webb, who had another solid, great year. Led the league in strikeouts, which I know that was something he was aiming to do. He looked great. Finished with a 3.22 ERA, 2.60 FIP. He was excellent. He was then backed by Robbie Ray, who had a real return to form. Was an all-star. He was just as excellent as Webby was. Landon Root proved to be a real revelation in the rotation this year. Had some moments up and down, but overall, I thought he pitched excellently. He had just a stellar year, 3.80 ERA, 3.91 FIP. Unfortunately, his season ended prematurely due to injury. So hopefully, coming back next year, we'll have a fully healthy Landon Root. But those are 3 guys in this rotation that I thought really did well. They had some question marks in their rotation. Justin Verlander, he just had real tough time getting out of the box. He eventually found it down the stretch, but overall, I think he just, you know, he's in his 40s, and when you sign a guy like that, who's kind of past it, you don't expect much, but he gave us more than I thought, like 152 innings. If you think about it, you get 152 innings out of a 40-plus old Justin Verlander. You know what? You think you're in pretty good shape, but half the time he had trouble staying in the strike zone, gave up a lot of hard contact. Half the time when he did pitch well, the bullpen would implode. And by bullpen, I mean Ryan Walker, because for some reason, anytime there was a Justin Verlander start and the game was close and he came out of the bullpen, he saw fit to just ruin it. I don't know. That was a theme this year. Like I know Verlander was sitting in the dugout after he pitched a really good game, and he hated to see Ryan Walker coming because he knew nothing good was going to come out of it. But overall, I won't get too much into it, today, but the pitching was not the problem for the Giants. When I look at what was really wrong with the Giants and where a lot of their inconsistencies were, it was with their offense. They were a pretty sluggish offense this year. As a team, they hit 235, 311 on base percentage, slugging 386, and that's good for a 97 weighted runs created plus as a team. Not to mention, they struck out a lot, 22.7% K rate, only a 9.2% walk rate as a team. So their offense was very, very inconsistent throughout points in this year. And a lot of that can be contributed to slow starts to key guys, Willy Adames, who I think deserves a round of applause, like a little bit of a round of applause for pulling his season together at the end, because it was looking bad. Like, you look at the on base and the average, it's nothing too great there, but he managed to get the power game going for him. Had 30 home runs, which is the first time since 2004 a San Francisco Giant hit 30 home runs since Barry Bonds, and Willy Adames did that. And he deserves a lot of credit for just pulling himself up and keeping it going. Like, finished with a 421 slugging, and even brought his WRC to 108. So, and he played really good defense too at shortstop. So Willie, kind of got going late. Chappie, he missed a lot of time with injury. Only 128 games played. Was dealing with multiple injuries throughout the course of the year. Still played a good third base and, managed to hit 20 home runs. But you wanted a little bit more from him. Jung-Hoo Lee, who got off to a roaring start, had a decent year but kind of petered out. He kept trying to just lift and separate every time he got to the plate. Kind of fell out of his game that made him so unique. So, and I gotta say though, Rafi Devers, he was excellent in his time with the Giant. As a Giant, only hit 236, but a 347 on base percentage, 460 slugging, that with 20 home runs. Like, he was excellent in a Giants uniform. And the Giants are going to get a full season of Rafael Devers next year, and I think that can be just great. That just spells like good things for the Giants in the middle of their lineup. You just want other guys to kind of keep going and, follow suit. Elliot Ramos, I think overall he had a solid enough year. Hit 21 home runs, but his defense in the outfield was just confusing at best, because sometimes he makes some really excellent plays, and then you look at him and it looked like he never played outfield before. It was frustrating at points to watch Elliot Ramos. But that's kind of it. I won't go into many other players, but yeah, that's kind of the Giants season in a nutshell. Just they couldn't really find consistency. They couldn't find a rhythm throughout the course of the year. And when it came down to the trade deadline, when that approached, you just weren't inspired with a lot of confidence that this team was going to be able to do something. So Buster Posey had to go and make some changes. And one of the changes he made was, he had to sell off some of their high leverage bullpen arms in Camilo Duvall and Tyler Rogers, and even sold off Mike Yastrzemski, and got fairly, I thought, decent returns for both, especially in the Rogers deal, getting Blake Tidwell and Drew Gilbert, who kind of became a sensation, not just in San Francisco but in baseball for his just out there wild personality. Like I call him, every time I see him, I was like, this little psycho he's awesome. He's like just what I think the Giants need, because they lack energy, and I think that played a role in why they felt sluggish at points. But yeah, they just didn't have enough fire and didn't have enough energy. But when I look back at this year, other than the record and not making the playoffs, I think about Buster Posey. This will actually officially be, I think it's been over. We've reached the 1 year mark with Buster Posey as the president of baseball operations. And to give Buster a grade on how I think he did, I'd have to say overall, I give Buster a solid B his first year as president of baseball operations. And the reason I go with a B is, of course, the season didn't end the way we had anticipated, but I can't put that all on Buster Posey, and I can't even look at him I can't look at him and say he didn't try everything he could to put the Giants in a position to be playoff contenders, because he did. From the onset, he went out in the offseason and he addressed a position of need, shortstop. He went and signed Willy Adames. That turned out to be a very good signing, and I think long term, I think will be a great signing for the Giants. He was instrumental in Chapman re-signing before he was even president of baseball operations. He got, in there and he led the negotiations. And that was kind of the beginning of his, I guess you could say, a prequel to him becoming president of baseball operations. You got to see his negotiation chops on full display in that moment. This guy orchestrated a pre-trade deadline blockbuster deal to acquire Rafael Devers from the Boston Red Sox. He was doing everything in his power to make it, work. And I don't even know if I can call this one move a misstep, but I think he was trying to send a message to the guys in hopes that they would reciprocate it when he picked up Bob Melvin's option. And unfortunately, the boys did not respond in the way that I think Buster thought, because Bob Melvin is so revered and so beloved in this clubhouse. Hell, he's pretty well revered, I think, in baseball circles. But I said it months ago, I didn't think Bob was the right fit. I don't think he was what the Giants needed to get over that hump, and I was very disappointed and rather upset that they opted to pick up Bob Melvin's option, because I just didn't feel any confidence with him or this staff. I felt like the Giants needed a fresh new coat of paint going into 2026. And credit to Buster, he tried, he thought he'd give Bob Melvin a shot. And hey, I don't put everything on Bob Melvin, but at the same time, And I think Buster even said this, to continue doing the same things we're doing and expecting a different result would be, for lack of a better term, lunacy. Like, it wouldn't be a smart play. So, recognizing that, after the season ended, Buster, he gave Bob his walking papers. And, now the Giants find themselves in a managerial search that, at the time I'm recording this, might very well be nearing its end, because there were initial reports about former Giant Nick Hundley potentially taking the role. I believe they had talks or interviews with Brandon Hyde, the former manager for the Baltimore Orioles. And today, as I'm recording this, there was word that he's not former yet, but Tennessee baseball head coach Tony Vitello could be very well the next San Francisco Giants manager for 2026. There was a report today that said the Giants are apparently closing in on hiring Vitello as their next manager. So, and that's interesting, because this is a man with no prior experience in the big leagues, in Major League Baseball. All of his experience came from the college baseball level, and I think there is a lot of questions about how that would translate to major leaguers as opposed to college players. So that's still kind of impending. We still don't have an official announcement from the Giants regarding their managerial search, so we will see about that. But the reason I bring that up in concert with Buster Posey's tenure as president of baseball operations is because one thing that was very evident about Buster, and something that I loved about what he did in his first year as the president of baseball operations, was he was not afraid to take big swings. He was not afraid to take a risk. He was not out here with the fear of failure looming in the back of his mind. He was out here 100% going full bore, balls to the wall. How can I make this team playoff contender? How can I get this Giants team to the next level? Because we're kind of stuck in this doldrums here. And like he said, he feels like the fans deserve a winner. And one of the things through his, whether it was him pursuing free agents, whether it was him in the trade market, and right now we're kind of seeing it with his pursuit of a manager, he is very, very aggressive. And that is a far cry from the previous regime led by Farhan Zaidi. Farhan, I like to think at least that I was a little bit more nicer to him in regards to his tenure as opposed to other fans, because I know other fans they didn't like him from the outset, and they definitely crucified him on his way out. And it's not like he didn't deserve to hear some of the things he probably heard, or things that fans were saying about him, because he did not do his job. He was very risk adverse. I talked about this in my episode where I just talked about the entire Farhan Zaidi era. He was very afraid of failure, and you could see it in his moves. He was moving very calculated, but at the same time, his moves were very, very conservative. Like, he was not ready to take big swings, whether it be in trades or in free agency, and it spelled volumes about how the fans felt about him. And it just, compare that to what Buster Posey's doing now, you can see that there is a sense of urgency with Buster Posey and this regime. And personally, I love that. If you continue to just play it safe and just kind of, oh, we're going to make these small under the radar moves. We're not going to go after specific free agents, whether it be age being a deterrent or, the contract being a deterrent. If you continue to play it that way, you're not going to get anywhere. And the gap between the Giants and the Dodgers and, other competing teams in the National League is already, vastly wide. Why continue to play it safe? Why continue to just keep doing the same thing over and over again and allow that gap to widen? Because that's all you're doing by just playing it safe. And that was the most frustrating thing to me in regards to Farhan Zaidi and his tenure with the Giants as the president of baseball operations. And, I can't say that about Buster Posey. I like that he's taking big swings. And only time will tell if they work out. Only time will tell. But you never know unless you take them. You have to take them out. Every great franchise or window of championship contention has a bit of risk to it. It involves some risk, and you cannot be afraid to take chances. So overall, when it comes to Buster Posey, his first year as president of baseball operations, I think I liked what he did overall. I think the only thing I would knock him for is, giving Bob Melvin the picking up his option. And even then, he realized hey, this might not be the move. Let me just get out of that. Bob, thank you for your time, thank you for your service, but we're gonna go in a different direction. This team needs a new voice. And unfortunately, Bob, for all his good deeds in the game, respect him as a manager, but in 2025, it's not resonating, and it's definitely not resonating with this current Giants team. So if it's Vitello, we'll see. Maybe he can spark some life into this team. I plan on doing an episode soon regarding the Giants managerial hire, and we'll see if Tony Vitello is the guy for the San Francisco Giants. But things that the Giants need to address this offseason, and then I'll get out of here. Mainly the starting rotation. They need to fortify it behind Webb, Roop, and Ray. There's no shortage of great starting pitchers on the market this upcoming offseason. Dylan Cease, Zach Gallen, just to name a few. Hey, maybe some guys in trades like Freddie Peralta. Apparently he's got 1 year left of team control with the Brewers, and then he's a free agent the following season. He could be something that the Giants could look into. Freddie Peralta in the Giants rotation, I think that would be excellent. They need to look at the back end of the rotation. Remember, they sold off pieces. Tyler Rogers, he'll be a free agent. I think the likelihood of him and the Giants having a reunion are very, very good. And given how he's been one of the top relievers in baseball, it makes all the sense in the world for the Giants to bring him back. And given that it seems like there would be, at least on the surface, a mutual want to reunite rather, that that seems all but possible, and there's going to be a lot of other potential bullpen arms available too for the Giants. So we'll see how that goes. In terms of offense, I mean, if the Giants are looking to, get in the Kyle Tucker market, I don't know, they could use an upgrade maybe in the corners of the outfield, but I'm not sure where their head is at. Bo Bichette, he makes sense for second base, but Casey Schmidt, showed a lot of improvement this year, and he's a far superior defender than Bo Bichette. Like, you get better offense with Bichette, but you lose defense. And the Giants, while they weren't the best defensive team this year, they were certainly a lot better than they had been previously. So, I don't know. We'll see if they want to mess with that. But I think right now the main thing would be just sharpening the starting rotation, shoring up the bullpen, and addressing maybe the lack of depth on the bench, because the Giants don't have a lot going for them in terms of the second unit. I would love to see Dominic Smith return. Dom was excellent for us before he sadly got hurt. I would love to see him back. He was a good part of our team. But yeah, we'll probably jump into that more later, and probably do a separate episode for that. But I think I've rambled long enough here. We'll see what happens in the coming days. The Giants might have more news in terms of the managerial search, and then of course once the postseason concludes, free agency can get kicked off and the Giants can start making some moves. But that's gonna do it for me here on this edition of Second and King. Hopefully you guys tune in still. Again, I know I went AWOL. I was MIA for quite some time, but hopefully there's some of you who were eager for me to come back and will listen. And to the new fans who haven't, welcome. But that's going to do it for me here on this edition of Second and King. Make sure you hit me up on the socials. You'll probably see them on the screen here in a little bit. But hey, thank you guys for listening. And as always, go Giants.